Yo, what's good? What's good, everybody? How you guys doing? How you guys doing today? This is your Coffee is Sports in the Morning show on this lovely Friday. I'm your host, Coach Dante, as I am always. Got to my left, got to my right, Maria on the other side of me, got down below to my left, we got Chris. And down to the left bottom, we got my guy, right-hand man of the morning show, Mo Better. How you doing today? How y'all doing today, this morning?
Doing great, Coach. Just ready to go.
How you doing, Mari? How you doing this morning?
I'm good. Feeling a little groggy because I have to handle some stuff, but I'm good.
Got you. Chris, how you doing today?
It is great to be here, ladies and gents. Let's talk some sports this morning.
Let's do it, man. We got some good topics, and plus, y'all stay tuned, man. Mo got something for y'all. Mo gonna talk about the great, y'all know what that man, executioner Bernard Hopkins, man. It's a hell of a story on him. So y'all stay tuned, man, for the last segment, Mo's boxing segment. He's gonna talk about the great executioner Bernard Hopkins. So as we get into it, let's go ahead and get into it if we don't mind. We got CP3 NBA topics. We got CP3 talk says his role is to help us, basically to help the team win. He was even open to come off the bench. He's even open, came out and said he's open to come off the bench just to help the team win. So do you guys think it will work? And how do you guys feel about him saying in this stage of his career, he's opening to come off the bench? Mari, I'm gonna start with you.
I'm not surprised. He's up there in age. Him coming off the bench, I thought would be the best. Well, at first I thought he would start, but then I forgot about the lineup with Steph Curry, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, and Kevon Looney. So it just made, after I remembered that lineup, it made sense for him to come off the bench and just be the facilitating point guard for the players off the bench, because that's where they need the most help. So him saying that is huge, of course. It's Chris Paul, but yeah, it just makes sense for him to come off the bench.
Yes, indeed. Chris, go ahead.
There's so many reasons why this shouldn't work, right? Him and Dre don't get along. Clay's had some things to say about CP3 in the past. Do I think that athletes in their mid-30s or they're approaching mid-30s can put stuff behind them and just do business? Yes, I do. I do think they can do that. I think that the goal in Golden State is to contend for and win a championship, and that's why Chris Paul is there. But I can't look over the fact that it was only a week and a half ago that he was asked by a reporter about coming off the bench for the first time in his career, and his response to that was, well, we're still figuring things out. It's my hope that I can be a starter. And I like what he's saying now, but I'm a little concerned that a week and a half ago, someone with the basketball IQ of him is looking at this roster, how it's currently comprised, and saying things like, well, I hope to start next to Steph. To do what? To be the smallest and most easily dominated lineup in the NBA? Like that, yeah, that's what your hope is? Like, come on. I get it. You're a prideful individual. You are 38 years old. You have never come off the bench once in your life. But coming into this, you had to have known that that was what your role is going to be. You had to have known. Now, as long as he is okay with that, as long as he is okay with accepting that role of coming off the bench and working with that second unit, I think there's a lot of potential here. I really, really do. I think you're going to see potentially a different kind of basketball when he is on the floor, a different wrinkle to Golden State's offense. And I do think he has the ability, and I'm a big Steph guy, but I'll tell you, Steph doesn't always elevate talent around him. He simply doesn't, especially when it comes to some of those younger kids. And you've seen that. You've seen the lack of development with some of their younger players. And you know, when it comes to elevating talent around you, I really feel it's something that you either innately have in you or you don't. And I'm not saying Steph is going around trying not to make people better, but I'm saying some people have that skill set naturally, and I think CP3 does. So if he's open to accepting the role of coming off the bench, maybe being a spot starter a couple of times throughout the season, but understanding that he isn't, you know, the number 3 or number 4 guy every night, and that's going to have to be his role, I think it can be successful. I still do think they need a bigger body out there. I'm not going to lay off of that. If Dwight Howard wants to come back to the USA and play some basketball, I think that they should be all over that, because that's the kind of size that they could use in spurts. But as long as he's open to coming off the bench and being a facilitator for that second unit, I think he will find some success.
Mo?
I thought when they made the move initially, they made it with the mindset that he was going to come off the bench, that he was going to be the leader of the second unit. He might be part of their closing lineup, depending on the matchups, but the best role for him is probably leading that second unit, getting the best out of players like Moody and Kuminga. His ability to manipulate pick and roll basketball, set guys up who are athletic and finishers at the rim, he's going to give them easy buckets. He's going to set those younger guys up for success. So to me, he's an added wrinkle to what they do. He doesn't really fit their style, but I think with him, they've got an additional style. They can play a multitude of ways because of his playmaking ability. And look, Chris Paul's also an effective catch and shoot three-point shooter. So I think he's going to find his role. If the real debate is about whether he starts or not, just from a basketball standpoint, he shouldn't start. It just doesn't work. They're already undersized and a little bit older. He would make them that much smaller and that much older in the starting lineup. But I do think he will benefit them greatly coming off the bench, getting the most out of that younger group. Because so far, like Chris said, they've been underutilized. Everything the Warriors have done has been about the Steph prime, the Steph run, trying to win a title. And by doing that, they kind of stunted Kuminga. They kind of stunted Moody. There was frustration, even though he played a lot with Jordan Poole. There was never a defined role for James Wiseman. So I think Chris Paul, unlike Steph and the other guys, he's going to do his best to get the most out of those younger players.
And we can't underlook the fact, and I know that Jordan Poole might get a little more of a bad rap than he should, but it is what it is. When you play with a group of guys that are as mature as Steph and Clay and Dre, I know Dre has his antics, but when it comes to being a professional basketball, team-oriented, do what you got to do for the team, he is professional. And for whatever reason, and it could just simply be age. I think there's like a 14-year age gap between Dre and Poole. Like, that's tough. I don't know how many of you were hanging out with people 14 years younger than you. Like, you ain't gonna have much in common. So I get it. You get Chris Paul in there, who is going to have that same maturity level, who's going to have the same focus on winning. He's never won. So for him, this is another, he's not going to have many of these opportunities left, right, to get that championship. So for him, this might be a very, very focused CP3. But also just looking at the fundamental side of it, he doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't make the boneheaded mistakes that you saw Poole make night in and night out that visibly frustrated teammates around him. You can probably count on two hands the number of times you've seen Steph Curry visibly frustrated with somebody other than himself. And most of those were with Jordan Poole. Like, it just is what it is. He wasn't vibing and jiving with what they had built there. And Chris Paul is going to slide right in personality-wise with the team, on top of the fact that he still does have something to offer.
But question I want to ask, like, speaking of young players, when you mentioned James Wiseman, and we was talking about how the Warriors don't have time to wait. They're trying to keep the championship window open much as time as they can. Him flipping back and forward to the G League, and Jonathan Kuminga not being used at times. He was used a lot in the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, he has been less used. Moses Moody has also been less used as well. So, question for everybody: do you think is it on the Warriors development team, or it's just by them going once you go back and forth to the G League, that basically you don't have a role, you don't have a conservative role on the team. Wiseman goes to Detroit, all of a sudden he gets better. It may be because he's on a younger team that suits him that he's getting playing time. But is it on the Warriors development team, or they just don't have time for young guys like that to wait because they still got that, they want to keep that championship window open as much as they could? I want to get everybody thoughts on that.
I think it's on the Warriors. If James Wiseman and Moody and the other young guys didn't develop, that's on Steve Kerr and his assistant coaches. They're so hell bent on getting Steph ring number 5. They've lost sight of the future. They've not been developing these young talented guys because they shorten their rotations. You would think, how many of us thought a couple of years ago the Warriors were going to be one of the deeper teams? We thought that Wiseman, Moody, Kuminga were going to have bigger roles, and they actually get faded out of the rotation because Steve Kerr locked in on his top 6 or 7 guys. They're all veteran guys, and they didn't want to disrupt the continuity that they already had, which means those guys got less time on the floor, less time to develop, and I think it stunted all their careers. The only one that got extended playing time, obviously, was Jordan Poole.
Yeah,
but it's on Steve Kerr and the coaching staff to develop these guys, to incorporate them into the roster, at least give them a chance. Look, most guys learn by fire. You got to get out on the floor and you got to play. And Steve Kerr did not want to, he just didn't want to play them. He didn't want to do that. And I think when you look at how Steve Kerr, Steph, Clay, and Draymond are kind of like their own little core, the veterans on that team had no interest in helping those younger guys develop. They were thinking about themselves, thinking about their legacies. They weren't thinking about the guys coming up behind them.
Yep. Chris?
I mean, Mo's not wrong. If your team isn't developing players, it's on the team, whether it be the coaching staff, whether it be the game plan being put together. And in the situation of the Warriors, it's kind of everything above, right? And I don't think, yes, they're choosing not to develop them, but I don't think you're sitting down having a conversation of, we don't want Wiseman to get better. Or we don't want Moody to get better. We want to slow down Kuminga's growth. I don't think those are the conversations they're having. I think they're looking at it as, we see what they're doing in practice. We feel like they're not there, so we're not going to give them the added minutes. Now, the easy argument to that is, well, how are they going to get there if you never put them in?
Yep.
And I get that. That makes total sense. But like Mo said, they were content with what they had. They had the veteran group. They didn't want to shake that up. They didn't want to disrupt things on the court. They didn't want to potentially cost themselves games because they were running the younger group out there in key situations to get them that experience. And that's the balancing act, right? If you're not going to put them in with the vets to let them get that experience and get that grind, then chances are they're not going to get it because you're not going to get the same grind in practice. So if you're not going to give them the rub to give them the opportunity, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see guys that when they do get in there in moments where you actually need them, they're going to be hit and miss because they didn't have that opportunity to grow. And then you're going to see things like where the team starts moving off people, not because they're not talented, not because they can't be talented, but because they're taking up roster spots where you want to put someone else there, someone who's going to fit with what you're currently running out on the floor.
All right. Yeah. Mario?
They basically already said it. I think it was just the fact that they had the continuity with the 6 guys, them being vets, them already knowing what to do, them not having to like learn new things like the other guys had to. I didn't agree with how they did Wiseman when they did give him time, stuff like that, but they were just satisfied with the vets, so you can't argue that.
Yep. That's why I brought that question up, because again, there was a lot of pressure on James Wiseman. He was a high pick. He was a high draft pick. He kept going back and forth to the G League, and to me, that will shake up a player confidence really, really bad. One minute I'm playing on an NBA squad. 1 minute I'm going down to the G League, and now he with the Detroit Pistons, and he's playing pretty good basketball. Played pretty good basketball over there, so it'll be interesting to see what's next for Kuminga and Moses Moody. So we do got the next topic, and it's dealing with Zach Lavine. It's also dealing with Zach Lavine and the Chicago Bulls. The Knicks checked in on Zach Lavine, but the asking price was too high. It was like, I guess I'm assuming it was a giant asking price. What is Zach Lavine worth? What should the Knicks offer? I'm gonna start with you, Mo.
He's a good basketball player, but I don't think he's the kind of player you sell the farm for. He's not a franchise player. He's a complimentary star. So if the Knicks think that Zach Lavine is the difference between them losing in the second round or getting to a conference finals, I understand it. Is he a naturally more skilled and gifted player than, say, RJ Barrett? He is. Great shooter, can score. He makes it look easy at times. But the thing about Zach Lavine, I feel like he's at his ceiling. Like whatever you thought he could be, he is what he is. He's very good, but I don't think he has another level to him. And do you want to trade RJ Barrett, who's 22 years old, and I still think is ascending, for Zach Lavine? I don't think Zach Lavine comes into the Knicks and suddenly they're in the conference championship or they're in the NBA finals. I just think if you can get him for other assets that doesn't cost you, like someone who could be a potential star down the road, I would pursue that, maybe through picks or something like that. But I wouldn't trade someone like RJ Barrett, who, like I said, to me is still ascending, for Zach Lavine, knowing to me that Zach Lavine will not really change our fate.
Chris?
Picks and parts. If you can give up some picks and some small parts, I'm all for it. But I think Chicago, and this happens sometimes with teams, right? They look around the room and they look at their prettiest piece, and they think that the prettiest piece in their room is worth top dollar in the league. And Zach Lavine's a nice player. I think he's a nice piece, right? He's not an A+ player. He's not worth a farm. He's not worth, one of the big moves that you see these other superstars getting. And that's just kind of where we're at. And I think the Bulls are overvaluing him because he might mean more to their team as it's currently comprised. So they might want a big haul for him because in their minds they're like, well, if he walks out the door, we're really in trouble. We don't got a lot of talent over here if he leaves. But that doesn't mean that he's worth all of that. And if you're the Knicks, you like Mo said, you need to look at it and be like, listen, where are we with him? Are we in the Eastern Conference Finals? I don't think so. I think you have a chance, but I don't think it's a guarantee. I don't think it automatically puts you into that top 2 or 3 teams in the East as championship contenders. So if that's not the case, then we shouldn't be talking about any big moves. We definitely shouldn't be talking about selling off pieces that are critical to the team as it's currently comprised. And Chicago has a right to ask for whatever Chicago wants. If Chicago thinks he's worth a haul, ask for a haul. Because again, you're worth what somebody will give you. So if someone else thinks that Zach Lavine is worth a haul and they want to give that to Chicago, great. You found the match. I mean, look at some of our previous deals in the NBA. You are worth what people will give you for that. So I have no issue with Chicago asking for the world, but I would have an issue with the Knicks giving up the world to bring in Zach Lavine.
Gotcha. Mario?
I'm stuck in the middle on this because on one end, I do feel like Zach Lavine is worth a lot because I think Zach Lavine can still be that top 5 shooting guard in the league because I think he's just that talented. I think he still can do that. But also, I don't know. I like the Knicks roster as constructed. I wouldn't give up a piece for Zach Lavine. Anyways, and I agree with Mo about RJ Barrett. Like, I think Zach Lavine is better than RJ Barrett, but RJ's potential could be greater, and things like that. And they're well constructed. So I don't know, but yeah. Right now, I would say no if I was the Knicks, but
So
You know what, Coach?
Go ahead, Mo. Go ahead, get out.
I would say this. Everybody's talking about should they pursue Zach Lavine or move Barrett. Look, if you just get rid of Julius Randle, you're gonna be better.
Yep.
Just get rid of that anchor, and you're gonna be better.
Yep. Get some of that. Get some of that. I want to do your thing. Basketball up out of there. Yep.
He is a black hole. Get rid of him, and you're gonna be better.
Yeah, but it was a part two. I kind of want to get to you guys about Zach Lavine and the Chicago Bulls as a whole, though, because you've been hearing Zach Lavine these last 2 years in trade rumors, and the Bulls have failed to get the job done with DeMar DeRozan and Zach Lavine. Yes, they did lost Alonzo Ball, which is a big piece to him because he did improve his shooting, he did tweak his jump shot and get better. He was the anchor for them. They were number one pop in the East when he got hurt, and after that they just fell apart. So if they, I already know I'm gonna assume they're gonna go in this season with the same roster with Zach Lavine, DeMar DeRozan. But at what point do you see them blowing this team up? And would you blow this team up? Because it seemed like all they can do is make a play-in tournament and be at the bottom of the East, no more than 8 or 7 seed, basically play-in tournament range. So it just seemed like that how talented that team is and how talented DeMar DeRozan and Zach Lavine is. The result is a play-in tournament team. And if you're a Bulls fan, that don't supposed to be a result when you have those two stars on your team. That don't supposed to be the result right there. Your result was supposed to be at least 6 or 5. Good enough, possibly good enough to be 4, if even that. But 5 and 6 is that's supposed to be your range. So the question for everybody on the panel: should the Bulls go ahead and just blow everything up, just blow it up, if the job doesn't get done this season?
Should they blow it up? I mean, in theory, as a GM, if it's not working, you should try something new, right? I mean, that's logical. But if you look at the landscape of the NBA, that's also scary, because what does blowing it up look like? You're going to trade off your pieces. You're not going to get back what you want to get back for them. You're going to get torn apart in the media by your fan base because you traded off Rosen and you traded off DeRozan and you traded off Lavine and you didn't get back good talent. So now it's going to look like you just gave them away. Now you're going to suck for a few seasons. So you gave away your talent and you're not winning games and you're trying to rebuild. Like it's a process to commit to. And we've seen how the process has worked in Philadelphia, and that's not yielding anything near success. And they have stars on their team. So it's a big ask. In the NBA, the talent is the greatest lure, right? Because when you have talent on your team, what do you have? You have hope. And when you have hope, you want to hang on to it because you convince yourself that if things just fall the right way, if you stay healthy, if, you get a good bounce here, a good bounce there, you can reach your full potential. And your full potential could be a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? So you keep it together as long as you can because you have talent and you have hope. And then what always happens, you keep it together a year or two too long. And now your talent has dwindled. And it looks like you're the last one in the room to realize the hope left 2.5 seasons ago. And now you're really getting nothing back for what you have. And now you're forced into the rebuild, and it's literally worse than it should have been. That's just the pattern that I see. Mo, do you see anything different?
No, I think you covered everything. My thing, though, is look at their roster. Their three best players, Vucevic, DeRozan, and Lavine, what they all have in common is none of the three compete on defense. They don't play defense. None of them. None of them compete on defense. Yep. And with DeRozan being 33, 34, he's not part of your future. He's not part of your future, and you're not winning now. So I don't know if you blow it up completely, but to me, there are pieces that they should already be moving with the future in mind. DeMar DeRozan's not part of their future. I don't even know if Zach Lavine is part of their future because it seems like the combination of Lavine and DeRozan, it's not impacting winning.
Nope.
It's not impacting winning. So to me, yes, it is hard to blow it up, start fresh, because talent is hard to replace. But if you're just paying guys to barely get into a play-in tournament, it's not really worth it because the talent is not yielding wins.
Those two good enough alone. They should be able to get you out of a play-in tournament. They should not be in a play-in tournament. And Vuka can get you 20 points a night as well and 10 rebounds. So that team, even though Lonzo Ball's out, you should not be competing for a play-in tournament. You're still too good to be competing for a play-in tournament. Mario, your final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, like I said, I think that, like you said, I think they're too good to be fighting for a play-in spot to begin with. I think you're right. I think they go into the season with the same roster. See how I think a lot of their failure has also been due to the part that Lonzo Ball has been in and out, been injured.
Yep. It's a big piece.
Huge. I think that's a huge piece. So I don't know when I don't want to say wait till he comes back to see how it does because I don't even know when Lonzo's supposed to be back in the first place, but I guess you go into the season, see how they're doing. Then if they still fighting for a playing spot, I guess this it's time to blow it up.
All right. So we got a problem, a DeAndre Ayton problem right here. DeAndre Ayton said he basically has no fans. He wants the change the narrative. He wants to change the narrative in 2023. How can he goes about doing things? And are you a fan of DeAndre Ayton, Mo? Are you a big fan of DeAndre Ayton?
I'm a fan of his talent. I'm not a fan of the way he displays his talent when it matters most. He seems like he's lost. He had a really promising rookie season, and it seems like once the expectations were risen and they were higher for him, he hasn't been able to respond. And I think he's lost when he's playing with other stars, right? He thought he was going to become the man, be at least the number 2 option on that team, and then it just never happened. And it's no secret, him and Monty Williams never really got along because Monty Williams wanted more out of him on the defensive end of the floor, and he just wasn't consistent with his effort. You saw in the playoffs last year that they benched him and put Landale in, a guy who at best is a role player, a rotation player, and he got more minutes than DeAndre Ayton in that series just because of his effort. So I'm a fan of his talent, but at this point in his career, as long as he's already been in the NBA, I'm not sure there's going to be a major upside coming from him. I think what he needs more than anything is a change of scenery. I think what's gone on in Phoenix, that's burned, that's done. And I really think what they're doing right now with their roster by adding Bradley Beal, I think he's just going to become even more diminished in that roster. I think he's just going to fall to the wayside. I think his numbers will continue to drop.
Gotcha. Chris?
All right, I'm starting the DeAndre Ayton fan club. I will be the first member. I'm officially an Ayton fan. I'm going to name myself the president of the fan club. So, Ayton, you got one. All right, this is an investment opportunity. All right, I'll get you a jacket. I will get you a pin. All right, we're all going to be founding members of the Ayton fan club because the man needs a little bit of love. All right, how does he turn it around? Just grind, my guy. Just grind. Put your head down. play basketball, try to improve your craft, stop making noise, and realize that you are going. You're on a good team. Your team is going to be good. They are going to win games. Be a part of that, and don't take away from that. When you are on the team with the talent that that team currently has, we should not be hearing anything negative about you, especially when it comes to things like effort or willingness, right? Or, how you're playing the game based on how you're being coached. We don't want to hear those things this season. Go out there, do what you do what your coach is asking you to do, and really invest yourself into what the team needs from you, and that will change the narrative. Winning changes the narrative. Being the squeaky wheel that you've been all this time, not getting along with your coach, push back against players, that's not going to get you what you want, all right? You need to figure it out. This is big boy basketball. Play like someone your size should be playing, and then it will just naturally follow.
Something is obviously wrong with this dude when Jock Landale is playing better, and the team is actually playing better without DeAndre Ayton on the floor. But it's a part two to that I want to ask before Maria get off, because this is the last topic for Maria. So go ahead, Maria.
I think it's crazy how one's mental can really affect the player's gameplay. I think confidence is key. So if Ayton gets in his mind that if I can play like this against competition that isn't as great, why can I not play like this against competition that is great? I think it comes down to one's confidence. It's basically you're just doing the same thing. Obviously, we got to work a little harder, but once you have that confidence, you'll feel like you're able to do anything. I will also be a part of the DeAndre Ayton fan club.
There we go. We need some fans. There you go.
Yeah, right. Because he has potential. So he has a lot of potential, and like y'all said, he's around so much talent, and he shouldn't be complaining really at all, as long as he does what he does and everything like that. So Ayton got this. I got faith in Ayton.
Coach, I think Mario's spot on.
Yep.
Your mental can make or break your game. And I agree. I think right now his mental's broken. Like his confidence has got to be like at an all-time low. But I would also question, dude, you're a professional basketball player.
Yep.
Making the money that you're making. It's a combination of his mental and a combination of what's in his chest.
Mo, it sounds like you're not committed to a jacket yet, but we can get you a pin. It sounds like you're on the pin level, my guy. We'll get you a pin. Don't worry, we got you.
See, the part two to this question right here. Monty Williams got fired. And I don't know if DeAndre Ayton is a part of that. The way he coached DeAndre Ayton, the way he said you quit, he told him he quit on the team, which was true. And it was rightfully so. Monty Williams did challenge him as a player. And DeAndre Ayton did not like the challenge about Monty Williams. So the part two of that, did Monty Williams get a raw deal up out of that? Due to him just making the finals, I know losing in the second round and getting demolished by the Dallas Mavericks. And a part of him and DeAndre Ayton got into it a lot. And he said the team, he basically gave up on the squad. And now this year, they get beat by the Denver Nuggets. In 6 games. So do you think what's going on with that situation? Do y'all think Monty Williams had a raw deal by the way he handled the DeAndre Ayton situation, or it just was time for the team to move on at that point? Mo, I want to get your thoughts.
It's kind of a combination of both. It really is. I mean, the Ayton situation, I'm sure it played a factor in it. It's easier to replace a coach than it is a talented player. We all know that.
Yeah.
And to be fair to with Monty Williams, he's a very good coach, but he had some really bad playoff losses. I mean, it's one thing to lose in the playoffs, but they got blown off the floor at home multiple years. Nobody's going to forget what Luka did when he came into their house and not just destroyed them, but talked to everybody on the bench and everybody on the floor, telling them that he was destroying them. And I thought the Nuggets did pretty much the same thing. And so at some point, you're the owner, and he's a young owner. So he's looking for results immediately. He doesn't have patience. I think he's looking to shake things up immediately. So I think Monty was on the hot seat without being told he was on the hot seat, and those results are the reason why he got fired.
Winning fixes everything, right? And he did. He had some rough playoff losses, and then let's be honest. Everything he said about Ayton was true. He didn't overblow it. He didn't make stuff up. He wasn't on some sort of a tangent that he shouldn't have been on. He was 100% correct. But it comes back to that question: when you are the coach and you tear down one of the stars of the team, who's going to survive that situation? Do you have the resume? Have you been successful enough to overcome the other side of that? And he just wasn't. He didn't say anything wrong. He was 100% right, and he should have done that. Anyone in that spot, I would hope, would have the guts to call Ayton out for quitting on the team. Unfortunately, when you look at the way the team was comprised, the new owner, like Mo said, who wants to win now. He's making the moves to win now, and the results just weren't there, combined with the fact that now the coach and Ayton clearly don't get along, and who knows if that can be fixed or not. It ended the way I thought it probably should have ended.
Gotcha. Maria?
Yeah, like Chris said, not surprised. Usually when it's a player against the coach, the coach is always going to be the first to go. But I do agree that it was also just Monty's time to go. I mean, there had been playoff series where the Suns should have pulled it out, and unfortunately they didn't. But yeah, I'm just not surprised that Monty's gone. While the challenge was necessary, him challenging Aiden was important, but we know how the league is.
Yeah, so Maria, before you go, tell the people they can hit you up at.
My socials are Maria Knows Best on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. And I want to thank Gene because he sent a private chat, which basically did build up my confidence, because I get very insecure on some of my certain takes that I make. But yeah, thanks Gene for that, for hyping me up. But that's it.
I appreciate you for being a part of the show this morning.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So we're gonna bring up speaking of that man, Gene. This is a great guy. I seen him in backstage moving his head. I love his reactions every time it's a tape that Freddie make or anybody make. I love his reaction. Either the tape over his mouth or he do just like this. I'm getting to the point when I'm starting to do like this. I'm starting to act like Gene. So Gene, my man, Wire to Wire in the building. NFL set me. Gene, how you doing this morning, brother?
What's poppin', Coach? How you feeling? Thank you for the introduction.
Got you, man. But before we go to the NFL segment, give me your thoughts on DeAndre Ayton. Give me your thoughts on DeAndre Ayton in the Phoenix Suns, because I saw you in the chat. I agree with you completely.
I'm telling you right now, Chris is going to be losing a lot of money investing in those jackets because them jackets are going to be on clearance sale after he blows it with another coach. Look, I was always taught in sports, and I'm not sure what level of sports any of y'all played at, but there's a lot of things you can teach a player. You can teach them fundamentals. You can teach them skill. You can teach them how to finish at the lane or free throw shooting. But you can't teach heart. And if you don't have heart and if you don't have the confidence to be able to be an elite player, then that's just what it's going to be. All I ask you to do, and I implore you to go back and watch the Denver Nuggets versus Phoenix Suns series, and you tell me that the Phoenix Suns didn't play better when Bismarck Biyombo was on the court instead of DeAndre Ayton. He was getting absolutely abused by Joker, and I think Joker is one of the best big men in the league, but DeAndre Ayton could be a top 5 big man in basketball. It's just he does a great job against the nobodies of the world or the teams that don't have a center. But when he plays against – and look, guys, do you think DeAndre Ayton's going to get better without a point guard? Like Chris Paul's made his whole career off of making centers better. He's made his whole career. DeAndre Jordan is a no name because of Chris Paul. I think you guys brought up Chris Paul earlier. Kuminga is going to benefit the most from him on the second team. He makes his whole career after making big men better. He sets them up with easy dunks and transition buckets. DeAndre Ayton couldn't succeed with him, and you think he's going to get better without a point guard? They don't have a point guard. DeAndre Ayton is soft, and I won't. If you don't have heart, I don't want any piece of you. And Monty Williams is a great basketball coach. Yes, he had to be fired. His team basically quit on him. But that's not because of Monty Williams. That's because you drafted DeAndre Ayton with your number 1 overall pick, and he's a bum.
Now, Gene, I heard you say he could be a top 5 player. So that sounds like button material. We're going to get you a fan club button. You're on the button level with Mo. We got you.
I don't want a button because I don't invest in players that don't have heart.
It's in the mail. It's coming.
Damn it.
Oh, my goodness. So we get into our NFL. We get into our NFL topics pretty much. And just like we did the NFC East, we did the NFC East side of things over and under Vegas odds. We're doing the AFC West side of things. So, Gene, I'm going to start with you. The Chiefs are coming in. We already know they're going to win the division. It's not even a question. It's just a matter of who comes in second place actually behind them. But I'm going to go over the win total. Last year, they got over this win total. So 11.5 wins this year for the Chiefs. You going over or under?
This is such a square bettors mentality. I look at all these odds because Vegas sets the odds, right? So I'm looking at it from a gambler, and I'm going to be a square here. I don't see how they don't win 12 football games. I don't. I think so. When I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, there's a lot of things. I think that Kadarius Toney has a breakout year. I think Sky Moore has a better year. And I'll tell you right now, I think Justin Ross makes that roster and becomes a very, like, a Tyreek Hill light on that roster. I don't see how they get worse. I don't. I think the Chiefs go over 11.5 wins, and I know that sounds very square of me, but I just don't see a way where they – maybe if Patrick Mahomes misses half the season, I'll go over 11.5.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Chris.
I gotta agree with you. I mean, look at their schedule. I mean, first of all, their division, they're gonna handle their division easily. Then you start looking at their out of division games: Cardinals, Saints, Lions, Bears, Browns. I mean, come on, how are they not? Seriously, they're gonna take care of business in division. And then their out-of-division schedule isn't anything super threatening, given the elite team that they are. I don't know how they don't win 12 or 13 games easily.
Mo?
I think maybe they're going to make it interesting and rest Patrick Mahomes the first half of the season, just for excitement and just to, like, give everybody else in the AFC West a chance. Look, this team, with some of their younger players, what they were able to do with them last year, they're going to be better this year. They're going to be better on both sides of the ball. And then you've got, as somebody said, and I think it was hilarious, you've got the watered down Aaron Rodgers leading them. They're going to be fine. They're going to be over easily.
Gotcha.
How did someone say that? And, like, with a straight face. He called Patrick Mahomes the watered down version of Aaron Rodgers. I need to, like, take a second to just, he's going to be like, you got to be kidding me this week.
Oh, my God.
I'll already give it away for wire to wire. I will give it you got to be kidding me for next Wednesday will be Freddie Henderson for calling Patrick Mahomes the watered down version of Aaron Rodgers. Patrick Mahomes has 2 Super Bowls. Aaron Rodgers has 1. He's been in the league for 10 less years. Are we serious?
That's crazy.
Oh, my God, man. So you starting a 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers over Patrick Mahomes. Oh, my God. So we got the Chargers. Yeah, he said, what a diversion. He said, what a diversion. All right, so we got the Chargers. They're 8.5 win total. Mo, over or under 8 for the Chargers.
I really think that the Chargers and the Broncos are going to be competing for the one playoff spot, and I don't know which one of them is going to pull it out. So because I have that much confidence in how close that competition is going to be, I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over for the Chargers. Like, we all know what kind of talent they have on the offensive side of the football. There's some things they did in the offseason to try to upgrade some of the gray areas the flaws that they have defensively, but they have talent. They have playmakers on both sides, and they've got a legitimate franchise quarterback who's flanked by talent in the backfield and on the outside. I'm going to give them over. I think it's going to be close because I really do think Denver's going to be obviously much improved with Sean Payton running things, but I think it's going to be close. I'm going to give them over. I'm going to say they're going to win more than 8.5 games.
All right, Chris.
I got them at 9, so I'm going to go over just because of that. But if they end up with 8, I'm not going to be surprised. I think the Chargers finished 3rd in the division. I still don't like what they have on the defensive side. I don't like the fact that they have a defensive coach who can't figure out the defensive side of the ball. They have talent on the defensive side, but we're just not seeing the result of it on the field. And I think that Denver is going to take a jump. I think that Denver is going to fix their offensive woes, and they're already a good defensive team. And I think we're going to see that again this season. So I do think Chargers will go over the 8.5. I think they're going to be competing towards the end of the season for a playoff spot. But for me, I think their ceiling is right around 9 games.
Gene?
If the Chargers don't win 9 games and Brandon Staley is still the coach of that team, I want them investigated. That's we talk about talent on rosters, right? Is there a team that has more talent on their roster than the Chargers? I'm serious. Go to each length of the – you got Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. You have the best safety in football in Derwin James. You got J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., and that's just on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm sure I missed a player or two. I'm definitely sure I did. You go to the offensive side of the ball, you got Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. They just drafted Quentin Johnson in the first round to be your number 3 wide receiver. Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert. You invested all that money in that offensive line. If they don't win 9 games, like this seems like it should be 10.5. It should be the over-under for the Chargers, and it's 8.5. I got to go over, but I have no confidence in Brandon Staley. What I have confidence in is Kellen Moore running an offense that'll make Justin Herbert look good. And I think Kellen Moore was a good addition to that team at the offense coordinator position. But what I will say is this: if there's any way that team finishes under 8.5 wins this year, Brandon Staley needs to be fired midseason. Like the moment you know they're not going to win 10 games, just get rid of them. Like that's embarrassing. Yep. And we talk about, I have them winning 9 games. Like that's nice of you. And that's great, but that roster's not constructed to win 9 games. That roster's constructed to win the damn Super Bowl. If Sean Payton was the coach of that team, they would be odds-on favorite to go to the Super Bowl.
Got you. So we got the Denver Broncos, who is the same Vegas odds as the Chargers, 8.5. Gene, I'm gonna start with you. Broncos over under 8.5.
I feel like that I'm going over on every team in this division. Broncos country, let's ride. I'll get behind it. Sean Payton, much better coach, adult in the room. I think that Russell Wilson's season last year with Nathaniel Hackett was an aberration to what he's done in the NFL. If we just look at this Denver Broncos team last year, if they would have scored 20 points or more in every game, they would have went 15-2. Like, are we serious right now? The Denver Broncos have a great defense, not a good defense, a great defense. They have positional advantages with Jerry Jeudy. You have Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams. That team should win 10 games. I think with Sean Payton there, I think they win 10 games. They go 10-7.
Gene, you right up on that because they played a lot of close games, and that defense kept them in a whole bunch of ball games. That defense kept them in a whole bunch of ball games. They should have at least won like 12 of those games last year. They should have been at least a 12-win team last year, the way the defense battled and played last year. So he was 100%. Right. So, Chris, go ahead.
Don't forget, coming into last season, the AFC West was supposed to be the best division in football by far. And obviously, it didn't turn out that way. There was an incapable head coach in Denver. Staley still hasn't quite figured it out with the Chargers. But if you're looking at just talents of the teams, those 3 teams right there on paper should be Super Bowl contenders, all in the same division. So I have to go over again with the Broncos just because of what their rosters look like. And again, they should easily win 9, 10, 11 games. And the only difference between them and the Chargers, in my opinion, is I like the coach. They have a coach that I think is going to unlock all of their potential. Whereas when I look at the Chargers, I still don't know. Because if the Chargers roll out and win 8 games, I'm not going to be shocked because I've seen the Chargers fumble the ball with a really talented team. I've seen the Broncos fumble the ball with a coach who never should have been a head coach in the first place.
Yep.
But now you got a Hall of Famer in there, and I expect 10, 11, 12 wins. I wouldn't be surprised by any of those win totals. So I'm all over on the Broncos.
Before Mo goes, I just brought it up for the heck of it.
Go ahead.
They lost 17-16 to the Seahawks. They lost 12-9 to the Colts. They lost 19-16 to the Chargers, 16-9 to the Jets, 17-10 to the Titans. They lost 10-9 to the Ravens. That defense did them a job that they should have won 13 games. It's embarrassing.
That is.
Daniel Hackett should never got hired. You're absolutely correct, Chris. I won't get on my soapbox like I normally do when we talk about these offensive coordinators getting hired from. I won't do that because I feel like that I've said that enough on this show that you know what's coming next. But you get it. Sorry, Mo.
No, you was right. That was embarrassing. They fumbled the ball literally in the Seahawks game. They fumbled the ball twice. They actually fumbled the ball twice at the goal line and cost them the game. That Broncos game was tough to watch. You go for it on a 4th and 1 and throw an interception when you was running the ball that drive, or you could have either ran the ball or just went on and kicked the field goal. Your defense was playing that well, and you call a throwing play and he literally gets picked off in the end zone. That's crazy. But go ahead, Mo.
They're going to go over. Sean Payton's already in the process of setting Russell Wilson up for success. He revamped the offensive line. He's going to feature the run game. He's going to highlight what Russell Wilson does best. He's great off play action. That defense, it's one of the top 5 defenses by far in the NFL. You get a competent offense, which you will get with Sean Payton, and that's an 11, maybe 12-win team because of Sean Payton. And look, people kind of lost sight of Russell Wilson because they have one bad season. I still think he's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. I still think he's a top 10 quarterback. And now that he's got a guy like Sean Payton that's going to highlight his strengths, the Broncos are going to be right there. They're not going to be as good as the Chiefs, but they're definitely going to go over that prediction.
Got you. So last but not least, start at the bottom with Mo. Got the Las Vegas Raiders, man. They got them 7.5 wins. I can already see Chris' reaction. We just talked about the Raiders the other day, talking about them possibly could blow it up. Mo, are you sold on the Raiders? 7.5 wins over or under?
That's way too many wins for the Raiders. I don't see that. You're up in the air with what you're going to do, depending on Garoppolo's health. Devontae Adams is already upset. Your running back, who was your best player last year, he might sit out. We've already talked about running backs and their value, and that defense wasn't great. It was far from great. The future doesn't look bright if you're a Raiders fan. If they win 7 games, that's pretty impressive. I'm going to say under. I just don't see it. I don't see the playmakers or the talent on both sides of the ball. And I know Jimmy Garoppolo is a winning quarterback. He has a good record. But to play to Devontae Adams' strengths, I don't think he's the guy to be throwing him the football. I don't think Devontae Adams want to catch a lot of short 6 and 8 yard hook routes or underneath routes. And that's pretty much the strength of Jimmy Garoppolo. He does not push the ball down the field. And if you're not going to have that run game, which would be the best friend to a Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to be even a lesser version of himself. So I'm going to say under.
All right. Go ahead, Chris.
I will defend Jimmy Garoppolo until the end of days. All right. I think that in the right system, he can be a guy to get you to where you need to go. And I think we've seen that. When you put a defense around him, when you put weapons around him, he wins almost 75% of his games. But that's not what he has in Las Vegas. He doesn't have a defense that can help him. He has okay weapons. He has Devontae Adams, but He's going to have a very unhappy Davante Adams when things start to go south. He has a running back who's probably going to sit out or isn't going to be happy. They lost they drafted a good replacement tight end, but they lost talent at the tight end position. And he doesn't have the offensive line that he would have had in San Francisco. When you take all those things away, Jimmy Garoppolo is a below average quarterback. He needs everything else around him to be B plus A quality to get him to be B quality. And when he is B quality, he will win you games. And we saw that in San Francisco. He just doesn't have that with the Raiders. You look at their division, they could easily go 0-6 in division. There's a huge gap between them and what's in their division. So once you start looking at them going 0-6 in their division, now you're looking at the rest of their schedule. There's not 7 wins on there. There are not 7 or 8 wins for them outside of their division. So not only do I think they're going to go under, I think they're going to go well under, and that's in best case scenario. That's assuming that Josh Jacobs plays, that they don't trade Davante Adams, that Garoppolo stays healthy and plays the entire season. Even if all those things happen, I still think this is a 3 or 4 win team at best.
Yep, gotcha. Go ahead, Gene.
I got a ridiculously bold prediction, and that's okay. I think the Raiders land the first overall pick next year. I think they're going to be the worst team in football. And you said you'll defend Jimmy Garoppolo. I won't. Jimmy Garoppolo sucks. I'm just tell you, he sucks. He played behind Bill Belichick and Kyle Shanahan, and we're going to talk about he's a winning quarterback. Do you look what Brock Purdy did with that team, the last pick? Kyle Shanahan's offense, a dummy can run it. I'm not trying to be rude when I say that. You literally have – I think Coach could run the damn offense.
Yeah, there we go. There we go, Gene.
It's the truth is this Raiders team is destined to fail. The moment that they let Rich Bisaccia walk out that door and with Josh McDaniels is the moment that organization fell down the wayside. You know, you bring Davante Adams in because he wants to play with his best friend from college. Then you move away from him for Jimmy Garoppolo. Are we out of our friggin' mind? Do we remember that the San Francisco 49ers were 5-4 with Jimmy Garoppolo led 49ers? They went on a run with Brock Purdy. He's not a winner. He played for 2 legendary coaches with legendary defenses and didn't screw up the game. You can't do that in Las Vegas. I'm serious when I say this. Davante Adams will have an injury this year, not a real injury, just I'm not playing injury.
I believe that.
Josh Jacobs will go home. He's not going to play on that franchise tag. And if he does, he's going to have a little hampered injury, and I'm going to sit out for a while. And that team's going to suck. And guess what? Someone's going to develop and get Caleb Williams to be their starting quarterback next year, and that somebody won't be Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels better be fired by week 9, week 10. I'll tell you right, I'll even go even further. I think the Raiders start 1-9. 1-9. That's where I think they start. I think they're one of the worst franchises in all football. Everyone's given that first pick to the Arizona Cardinals. I think Jonathan Gannon is more competent than Josh McDaniels. Raiders can be the worst team in the NFL this year.
Gene, I hear what you're saying, but how's Mac Jones doing? How's Mac Jones doing with Bill Belichick?
Mac Jones is 9 games and 8 games.
How's Trey Lance doing? Guy can't complete.
Trey Lance played 1 game. Are you serious?
Yeah. You seen Trey Lance? Trey Lance
played 1 game in a thunderstorm.
Trey Lance cannot complete 55% of his passes in this league.
How can you say that? Through what? 1 game in a thunderstorm, Chris? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. Don't sit here and disrespect Jimmy Garoppolo like that. Do not sit here and disrespect
1 game in a monsoon.
You are going to sit here and disrespect a man who's won 72% of his starts in the NFL.
Yes.
If anyone could win 72% of their starts in the NFL, then you would see it all over the league. You cannot sit here and say that a man that has won 72% of his starts in the NFL has gone to a Super Bowl is easily replaceable by anyone. That's a joke. That is so disrespectful.
He is the most easily replaceable quarterback in the NFL.
So disrespectful to his career.
That's fine. Who had the number 1 defense last year? San Francisco 49ers. Who had the number 1 defense when Jimmy Garoppolo played for New England? The New England Patriots. You could say whatever you want about Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's a certified game manager. And at very best, on his best days, he doesn't turn the ball over. He's never going to win you football games. I don't care what his winning percentage is as a quarterback. You watch Brock Purdy go 9-1 down the stretch. He was the last pick in the draft. If anybody watched Brock Purdy play at Iowa, I did. He stunk. He stunk.
He sucked in Iowa. He did. He really did. I watched him play.
Kyle Shanahan walked into that situation where he had 3 different quarterbacks. And for you to actually get on Trey Lance, who played 1 game in Chicago in a monsoon, and say he can't complete 60% of his passes in the NFL, how do you know that?
Have you not? Do you follow what happens in training camp with Trey Lance? He can't complete passes in training camp. His issues
follow 100% of what Trey Lance does.
Trey Lance has gotten into the league. His consistent criticism has been he can't even complete the passes in camp.
I remember Brandon Ayuk saying that Trey Lance was carving up what he believes will be the number 1 defense in football in San Francisco in practice. I remember his year 2 when he was given the starting job and what he was doing in training camp then. If you're talking about his rookie year training camp, the year where he took off a full year at North Dakota State before he came to the 49ers, okay, that's fine. You could talk about his rookie year training camp. I'm talking about year 2. I'm talking about what he was doing in year 2 training camp. In year 2 training camp, they were projecting him to be a breakout star. He was 9th in MVP odds going into last year. So he can't be that bad in training camp.
So you're talking about a guy that supposedly was carving up the best defense in the league, and now he's already been said to be replaced by Brock Purdy. The guy who you just said was terrible in college. Who had no business apparently being a starting quarterback, but there isn't even going to be a competition for that job. They're already done with Trey Lance. So if he's that talented and Brock Purdy is just garbage, why is Brock Purdy the starting quarterback and Trey Lance is yesterday's news?
Because Brock Purdy does exactly what Kyle Shanahan tells him to do, running his offense. Kyle Shanahan has always been the star quarterback for any team he's played for. It hasn't been Matt Ryan, hasn't been Jimmy Garoppolo, hasn't been Brock Purdy, Trey Lance. You can't be a superstar and play for Kyle Shanahan because it's Kyle Shanahan's team. And that's why that team won't win Super Bowls. That's why he'll never win a Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan's one of the best offensive minds in football, but he thinks he can do it all himself. And that's why he's caught himself in these situations with Matt Ryan in his MVP year. And then he wanted to throw the ball. Dude, I'm not kidding with you. You, Mo, coach, anybody could have coached that Atlanta Falcons team to a Super Bowl after Julio Jones caught that ball on the sideline. Run, kick a 38-yard field goal, and the game's over. He's trying to drop back and throw the ball because Kyle Shanahan needs to be the MVP of the Super Bowl. He also blew another 10-point lead versus Kansas City. And if he had such confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo, why when they got the ball back with 1:55 in the first half, he ran 2 straight plays to try to kill clock in a 10-10 game? Kyle Shanahan wants to be the superstar, and that's why Trey Lance, who is dynamic, athletic, and going to be an elite NFL quarterback in this league, is not going to be in San Francisco because Brock Purdy will do exactly what Kyle Shanahan tells him to do.
We'll revisit this when Trey's not an elite quarterback in the NFL.
I cannot wait. 2 years from now, Trey Lance and Justin Fields will be the future of the NFL.
Gotcha. All right, I got you. So here we go to the next topic. We talked about this yesterday. Justin Fields, is Justin Fields a top 5 running quarterback of all time? As he claims. We did talk about this yesterday, but Gene, want to get your thoughts on that one?
He's out of his damn mind. I love Justin Fields. And you know what Justin Fields is best at? You know Justin Fields ran more at Chicago than at Ohio State? That's not what Justin Fields is best at. He ran for his life because that offensive line stunk. But to pretend you're a top 5 quarterback, running quarterback, when there's quarterbacks like Mike Vick, Randall Cunningham, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Cam Newton, Steve Young, John Elway, you're not even close, bro. And I'm a Justin Fields fan, but go back and watch Ohio State versus Clemson when Justin Fields dotted Clemson up for 6 touchdowns in the college football semifinals. That's what Justin Fields should be doing instead of concerning himself being a top 5 rushing quarterback in the NFL. I'm glad you broke the rushing record for quarterbacks in the NFL. It's not really your fault that you have a makeshift offensive line, a defensive coordinator as a coach, and receivers that no one on this earth can make good, and Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, and a bag of Doritos. He's out of his mind.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, I mean, Gene, you're right. I think even if you look back to last season, right, the start of the season, he wasn't really running. Later on the season, he had some opportunities to actually run, and then they started designing run plays for him the following game, and now all of a sudden he's a running quarterback.
Yep, exactly.
And I guarantee you, if they come into this season with him being a running quarterback, giving defensive coordinators time to scheme for that and prepare for him to try to be like Lamar Jackson, it's not going to go well. Not because he's not dynamic, not because he's not athletic, but that's not his game. His game, his entire career, up until the last half of the NFL season or 3/4 of an NFL season, was he throws the ball, and he throws the ball pretty damn well. Now, granted, he doesn't have time to throw the ball. He doesn't have people to throw the ball to. And let's not forget, he has a defensive coach as a head coach. So I don't know if he's been put in the best offensive position as far as game plan and scheme goes to be successful throwing the ball. But last season, I think he fell victim to what a lot of athletes in sports today fall victim to, and that's the highlight reel. Because once he started running around, where was he every week? Sports Center. He was on all the highlights. Look at what Justin Fields is doing. Look who he made miss. Look at this 50-yard run. Look at his legs. And you can see he fell into his own hype, because when someone said, hey, where do you rank yourself amongst the greatest running quarterbacks of all time? He was like, well, let me think a minute. We got Vic, we got Lamar, we got Cam, we got me, and then we got Steve Young. Sir, excuse me? Stop it. Just you cannot put yourself in the same breath as those other 4 quarterbacks. Maybe you can when your career is over, but as of right now, just stop it.
Mo?
So I think there's a difference between being a great running quarterback and running for your life, like Gene said. He ran for his life. Like their best play, they call a pass, and he take off running. That was their best offensive play, and that's not a design play. That was just their best play. The receivers couldn't get open. The line couldn't protect. He ran for his life. I'm a big Justin Fields fan, but running for your life doesn't make you a great running quarterback. He has all the tools to be a great quarterback.
Yep.
But to make that statement after just that season, I think he just got caught up in the hype. He's not one of the great running quarterbacks of all time based off of a single season.
Also, he ran the ball 160 times last year. Yep. You're not going to run the ball 160 times in the NFL and not get yourself hurt. It's just not going to happen. You look at quarterbacks that are great running quarterbacks in NFL history, and he didn't mention Randall Cunningham. Like, Randall Cunningham was elite at running the football. He used to carry that football like a loaf of bread. One hand, just dodging people. I just can't imagine how someone who's so humble at Ohio State, who is such a prolific passer, who did not run the ball hardly at all. I'll bet you he ran the ball more last year than he did in 2 years at Ohio State. I just can't understand.
I think he got caught up in the moment. I think he's coming off a season where he saw himself in all the highlights. People are calling him, Lamar Jackson-esque and all that, and he's got caught up.
Yep. So we got the Washington Commanders. A lot of the Commanders fans happy that Snyder is gone. So it's a new day. It's a new day for the Commanders franchise. But Mo, how long will we see impact on the football field for the Washington Commanders? How long until we see the results on the football field that you think?
Well, they've got talent up front. They've got the best line, the best front four in football. But in terms of wins, you got to have a quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven league. You got to have a quarterback. Look, the franchise is better because they got rid of Snyder. They're better already. But on the field, in that division, I don't think they're a team that's going to be contending for a playoff spot. There's too many questions about what they have at the QB position. They have so much talent to me, though, at other spots offensively. We all already talked about McLaren. I think McLaren is one of the 5 best receivers in football. You'll never know that because he won't really get to shine the way he could if he had somebody that could get him the football. So in terms of results on the field right now, I don't think you're going to see those, at least not this season.
Chris?
I think right away we're going to see the franchise slowly not be considered a joke anymore, just from how it's ran. Hopefully it's going to be ran like adults are running it now. And all the nonsense and ridiculousness that was Snyder and the inappropriateness will hopefully not be a conversation when talking about that franchise anymore. And now we can actually talk about football when it comes to the Commanders. As far as the on-the-field product goes, who's your quarterback? Because that's kind of where it starts and ends. If you have a quarterback, you have a jumping off point, and you can kind of go from there. They have, I would say, one of the best defenses right now in the NFC. I would probably easily put them top 5, if not top 3, maybe. But defense is great, but you still need someone at the quarterback position that's going to get your team to that next level. Is it Sam Howell? I don't think it is. I could be wrong, but that's what they're missing. They need a quarterback. Once they have their franchise quarterback, along with that elite defense, I think you're going to see the on-the-field stuff. But just from changing ownership, I think you're going to see a shift this season to more conversations about the team being solely about football operations and the on-the-field product as opposed to the other noise. And maybe, I don't know, maybe long-term, the next season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, that attracts more people to come play for them. Probably not, because money talks, and you might have a couple of players that wouldn't go to Washington because of Snyder or whatnot. But even with that, I don't know if you're going to see a huge impact. But I think just from a conversation standpoint, they're going to be viewed as a functional organization, hopefully. And then once they figure out the quarterback situation, then you're going to see the on-the-field results.
Gene?
Dan Snyder is one of the worst human beings on the face of the earth. You're talking about a man that has 11 sexual assault charges / scandals against him. You're talking about a guy that has had racist comments. He's had bigoted comments. He's scoffed at the idea that their team name was racist, even though he didn't name the team name. Dan Snyder is an awful person. He's been behind so many awful scandals in the NFL. A lot of people don't remember that he was involved in the John Gruden, DeMar Smith situation.
Yep.
He's done so much bad, and it's just a black eye to the NFL for years upon years upon years. I'm an Eagles fan, right? And normally in your division, you root for your opponents to do poorly. I'm so happy for Washington Commanders fans that they get to remove the ugliness that was once the owner of their team. And I think that's only the beginning in NFL owners. You see how crappy of a person you have to be to eventually get removed as an owner. But there's plenty more, guys. There's plenty more of terrible owners in the NFL. And I hope this is the first domino and not the only domino that falls. I want there to be change across the NFL. There's lists of NFL owners that are awful people from front up to front down. Stephen Ross is one of them in the Miami Dolphins. Terrible person. Jerry Jones, the paying off a woman for 21 years that allegedly had a child with him. That Dan Snyder's a terrible person. And I can't even get hype or get, funny with this or characterize this. I think the Washington organization will be in a much better place now that they've gotten rid of the biggest black eye in NFL history. But it's not just one black eye, guys. There's 2 black eyes, a broken nose, a bloody lip. There's broken bones across the body. The NFL shield does not stand for what they want it to stand for. It stands for a whole history of domestic violence, abuse, sexual assault, racism, and that's got to stop. And the NFL has to do a better job of that. When 68% of the players in the league are African American, yet you still have every owner but 2 that are white, that's an issue, right? You have to really, and it's an ingrained issue, and it needs to be fixed. And this is the first step, right? This is step 1. Step 1 is admitting we have a problem. After step 1, we need to take a step to step 2. It's about a 12-step process.
But to your point, Gene, I mean, look how long it took, though. Look
know.
how long and look how much. I mean, let's say he had 15 indiscretions, terrible things. If he only had 12, he might still be here. I mean, because they kept popping up with him, that is kind of what was the push to finally do something about it, because I think they finally realized it's just not going to stop with him. It's just not going to go away. He's just going to keep having issues. Unfortunately, like you said, we have other owners. My team is one of them. Stephen Ross is a joke. He isn't a good person. He has a lot of money, but he has a laundry list of issues that he should not be proud of, and that should make you not eligible to own an NFL team. But what is this the catalyst for change? I don't know. It should be, right? Like, there has to be one step in the right direction that kind of gets the ball rolling. But my concern is that he just made too much noise too often, and that's why he was pushed out, and that he's going to be the exception to the rule and not the actual rule.
And we gave Joe Paterno all the crap in the world, and deservedly so, for what happened in Penn State. Dan Snyder did the same thing. One of his coaches groped a cheerleader, and he told the cheerleader to avoid that coach, like, after it got reported. Like, this is a joke, guys. Like, this is an awful human being. I honestly compare him to Satan. Like, and I don't want to get too religious or too deep on this show, but that guy's a sick individual. And I'll tell you right now, there's probably a million other things that he's covered up with his money. If we're talking about 17 things that got brought to light, I'm sure that there's at least 25 to 30 that have been settled by just him paying them off and NDA signed. He's a bad person. And it's not just him. There's plenty of them.
Gotcha. So, second to last topic before we get into Mo's segment. So we got if you're starting a franchise tomorrow, and you could pick one player on the offensive side of the ball and another player on the defensive side of the ball from any team, who would you take? Gene, who would you take?
I mean, are you allowing me to take quarterbacks?
Any side, any
Patrick Mahomes and Micah Parsons to the end. What are we talking about right now? We have a young historical quarterback that's in the middle of his prime, that's won 2 Super Bowls, that does things on the football field we've never seen from anybody. And you have an edge rusher that runs a 4.3 940 and has the capabilities of playing middle linebacker if I need him to. Yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes and Micah Parsons. I'm sorry. I appreciate you letting me go first here so it doesn't get repetitive. I would love to see Chris and Mo give me a different argument, but how do you argue against that? Mahomes and Micah.
I'll give you a different argument just for the sake of giving you a different argument. I'm going to go Micah. On defense, I figured most of us are going to go Micah. I tried to find a better argument under Micah, and I just couldn't. My argument for other than Patrick, it's not great, but I'm going to go Joe Burrow. I'm going to go Joe Burrow because I think that he's probably the second best. Mo's like, well, shoot, if you're taking Burrow. I'm going to go Burrow because he's not Mahomes. I think Mahomes is overall more talented than Burrow, and he probably should be unanimously the number 1 pick at quarterback. But if you're looking at some of the other things, I just love the Burrow swagger. I really do. I love the intangibles of Burrow. His skill set is obviously a little bit different than Mahomes is. But if you're looking at a face of a franchise from the quarterback position that's not Patrick Mahomes, I really think you can't get any better than everything that Burrow brings to the table.
Kevin from Home Alone really grew up and really grew in his body. Macaulay Culkin plays great quarterback.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mo.
I'm just going to go different because these 2 guys just wrecked the best things. I mean, I'm going to say this. I'll go with on defense. If we're saying we're starting them out and they're in the beginning of their careers,
yeah,
I'll take Aaron Donald, and on offense, I'll take Justin Herbert. I don't think my picks are better than their picks, but for the sake of just being different, and I don't think these are bad picks. I don't think they're bad picks at all. Aaron Donald is a terrific player, a disruptor, can play inside and outside, and Justin Herbert is an ascending QB. We've yet to see what he'll be, but I don't think they're bad takes. I just think Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, you're not going wrong with that, and then Micah. So I have no beef with them. I'm just mad that they got to go first.
I like the Herbert pick because, and I'll agree with you on this. I don't think we've seen the best version of Herbert. I would love to see Herbert with an offensive coach in a system that's designed by an offensive mind. We see him pop off with great numbers where I think he's kind of being held back by what's around him. So I'm curious what he looks like with a system that's built around him efficiently from an offensive mind.
Coach, the check is in the mail.
Yeah.
I appreciate you allowing me to go first on this one. But when you're talking about Justin Herbert, I kind of get tired of and I'll get deep into this, and this could break off into its own debate. I get tired of the excuses that get laid out for Justin Herbert. I really do. I agree with Chris. He's not with the best coach in the NFL. I understand that. And coaches do matter. Look at Urban Meyer with Trevor Lawrence, and I understand that. He still has made so many terrible decisions on the football field down the stretch, particularly in that playoff game versus Jacksonville, that I can't just allow us to be like, okay, well, it's the coaching staff. You're surrounded by one of the highest paid offensive lines in football. Now, granted, Rashawn Slater got hurt. One of the best running backs, two-way running backs in football. One of the best receiving cores in football. And we're going to just, Justin Herbert just doesn't have enough. Like, I get it. Like, I understand that Brandon Staley isn't the greatest. But I guess this year has to be the end-all be-all, right? Like, I don't want to hear excuses about Brandon Staley this year. They brought in Kellen Moore to run the offense. Kellen Moore is the full offensive coordinator over there. So if he doesn't throw for 4,500 yards and he throws less than 15 interceptions and they win a playoff game and they win 10 plus games, okay, I'm willing to open up that discussion. But I think that there's a younger, better quarterback that played in a worse situation for his coach and already overcame the adversity. And that guy plays in Jacksonville. That's Trevor Lawrence. I would rather start my team with Trevor Lawrence and than Justin Herbert any day of the week. So.
And Gene, you bring up a great point because look at Josh Allen. All the talent in the world. What's the question with Allen? Decision making when things get tight. You can't teach that. You either have it or you don't. Now you can work on it. You can fine tune it. But at the end of the day, when they're making those decisions in half a second and a half, that's up here. So we've seen those issues with Josh Allen. When things get tight, he sometimes makes really bad decisions. Same thing with Justin Herbert. We've seen him down the stretch in close games. Things get a little tight. He makes some passes where you're like, what was he doing? Now, outside of those, he puts up numbers like crazy, just like Josh Allen. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see with a true offensive mind around him, does the decision-making get better? Or is he just going to be one of those guys that puts up big numbers, but then in big spots, it's a miss?
Yep. So for mine, I'm gonna go different. As well. So if I had to start, my quarterback will be my Houston guy, Jalen Hurts. That would be my quarterback as for right now. That would be my quarterback, and I'm gonna have to go TJ Watt from the Steelers. I'm gonna go that route. So if I had to start, I just love Jalen Hurts, love him to death. Want to see anybody from Houston succeed, and he's killing it right now for the Philadelphia Eagles. So other than that, Mo, go ahead and get it off, man. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Gene. Get it off.
Real quick, I just wanted to bring up one thing. Justin Herbert has lived off of the potential of his rookie year. They made a coaching change, which I think is one of the most embarrassing coaching changes made in NFL history. You got the third pick at quarterback. Two quarterbacks were drafted in front of Justin Herbert that year. One of them being Tua, the other being Joe Burrow. Justin Herbert won Offensive Rookie of the Year, ascending quarterback, and they fired Anthony Lynn. I need to just understand, and if someone can help me get this, and this happens everywhere in the NFL. Once again, I won't say what it is. I just want you to put 2 and 2 together. Anthony Lynn was let go prematurely. Brandon Staley stayed a lot longer than he should have. Okay, let's stop for a minute. Jim Caldwell in Detroit was let go prematurely. Matt Patricia, his successor, stayed a lot longer than he should have. Rich Bisaccia was let go prematurely. Josh McDaniels, we got to give him time. I don't know what these coaches have in common between the ones that were let go prematurely and the ones that outstayed their welcome. I'll let you figure that out at home, but it happens too often. And when I look at what happened with Justin Herbert, I envision what he would have looked like with 2 more years of Anthony Lynn. Sorry, I just wanted to get that point.
It's a great point. Caldwell got fired after leading to the Lions to the playoffs, and then right after that, right after he got let go, the team was no more the same after that. Rich Bisaccia, through all the stuff that the Raiders going through with the Henry Ruggs situation everything, John Gruden situation, he still was able to get the team to the playoffs, and a lot of those players had respect for Rich Bisaccia. They played well for him. But you already know Raiders fan base say he's not a head coach. He's not a head coach. Well, he led them to the playoffs. The team was responded, left to the playoffs. I thought Darren Waller quit on the team in that Cincinnati game. He didn't go hard after catches at all. Some catches that he should have had that he just didn't run the routes right. But yeah, that's a great point, Gene. I love that. That was a great point that you put out there for them coaches that got did wrong. Mo, go ahead. Tell us about your guy, man.
Today we're talking about one of my favorite boxers, Bernard the Executioner Hopkins.
Yep.
Executioner started off his pro career after having 95 wins as an amateur, lost his first professional fight, took 18 months off because he said he would never be unprepared for a fight again. Came back, won his next 21 fights, 16 by knockouts. Got his first championship fight for the vacant IBF middleweight championship against Roy Jones. You remember their first meeting?
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Roy Jones boxed circles around him. Hopkins wasn't really ready for the speed and the elusive ability of Roy Jones. Lost that fight. Roy Jones gives up the belt. Bernard Hopkins gets another opportunity for the IBF middleweight championship against Mercado. Mercado is to Bernard Hopkins what Vito Alfermo was to Marvin Hagler. If you want to see a brawl, if you want to see an all-out world, watch the fights between Hopkins and Mercado. Mercado knocked him down twice, dominated the first 6 or 7 rounds. Hopkins, this is what he was known for, that fearlessness, that toughness, that resilience ability. He hops up, gets back into the fight, dominates the rest of the fight, and gets a draw. Immediately, they ordered a rematch. Hopkins knocks him out in the 7th round of the rematch to get his first championship, the IBF middleweight championship. He makes 12 successful defenses of the belt. Can't get a fight with the other title holders, Keith Holmes, William Joppy. They were running from him. So the powers that be ordered a boxing tournament. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was a big unification tournament. Yep. And the guy that everybody predicted to win that tournament was Tito Trinidad, undefeated, dominating, power punching. Nobody wanted any part of him. So Hopkins beats Holmes. Trinidad knocks out Joppy. Trinidad comes into the fight a huge favorite. Everybody thinks it's a wrap.
Yep.
I love the Executioner. He's got swag on another level, but he did some wild stuff. He actually took the Puerto Rican flag and threw it on the ground multiple times. He's a wild boy.
He did it in Puerto Rico.
Right. In 2 different press conferences. He's a wild boy. They get into the fight, and he doesn't just beat Trinidad. He tortures him. He batters him.
Yep.
There's a point in the fight, I think round 10.
Yeah, the corner wants to stop the fight. They want to stop.
You can see him actually holding him up and talking to him while he's punching him. Round 12, Tito's dad jumps into the ring. He literally jumps into the ring and stops the fight. His son had enough. Tito Trinidad, if you know his career, was never the same fighter again. That was not only his first loss, he was never the same fighter again.
Yep.
All the way up, the lead up to the fight, Hopkins told Trinidad, I'm not going to run. I'm going to come hunting for you. You don't have to look for me. The fight started. Bernard Hopkins did what he always did. He went a completely different route, stayed on the outside, jabbed, peppered him with his jab, and then whenever Trinidad tried to come in, he would hold him, separate, go to the body, and he just wore him down. One of his signature performances. He goes on to make 7 more defenses of the championship, and then he meets up with Jermaine Taylor. Jermaine Taylor, for whatever reason, at his peak, was one of those guys that, for whatever reason, he gave Bernard Hopkins fits. I actually thought in the first fight that it was a really close fight. I thought Bernard Hopkins actually did enough to win that fight. I thought he got robbed. I thought he got robbed. They gave Jermaine Taylor a decision. It's one of the worst decisions I ever saw in boxing history. In the rematch, I think Bernard Hopkins struggled with making weight. Jermaine Taylor actually won a unanimous decision. But if you saw that fight, it was close. Those scorecards were insane. The boxing, but the one thing that kills me about boxing is I don't understand judges. Some of the scorecards made no sense. They had Jermaine Taylor basically blanking Bernard Hopkins. They did not give Bernard Hopkins 1 round. Unheard of. Executioner moves on, goes up to light heavyweight. Tortures Antonio Tarver, who had just beaten down a washed-up Roy Jones Jr. And I want to remind everybody this about Bernard Hopkins. Critics will say he just had a long career. When he lost to Jermaine Taylor, he was 40. He was 40 years old. When he knocked out Tito Trinidad, he was in his late 30s. He didn't have just a long career. He had extended greatness. He went on to win the light heavyweight championship at age 46, knocking out John Pascal. They had a rematch, and he won that as well. Bernard Hopkins won the lineal light heavyweight championship at age 48, won a piece of it, the WBC championship at age 49. Bernard Hopkins didn't just have a long career. He had extended greatness. Had the ability to fight on the outside against bigger, more physical fighters, but could pressure and break down smaller fighters with his body shots. The fight against Oscar De La Hoya ended that fight with a wicked body shot.
With a liver shot, yep.
And De La Hoya didn't even attempt to raise up. Bernard Hopkins is one of the greatest fighters of the modern era. And one of the, probably the most, I would call it adaptable fighters to any style. A strategic genius. He would intimidate you mentally and then get into the fight and switch things up. Bernard Hopkins is not just a great middleweight. He was a great light heavyweight. To me, even though he's ranked pound for pound, one of the 10 greatest modern day fighters, I still think Bernard Hopkins is vastly underrated. Bernard Hopkins, the executioner.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Gene.
I'm from Philadelphia. I've met Nassim Richardson. I've rooted for Bernard Hopkins. I've been in gyms in which he's trained in. When we watched your Jermaine Bad Intentions Taylor fight, the first fight, that was an absolute stone cold robbery. I was so angry. And when they fought again, all 3 judges scored about 115, 113. For Jermaine Taylor, which I scored it a draw. I think Jermaine Taylor and Bernard Hopkins were 6-6 in the rounds. I'm okay with the loss there. But my adage has been to beat the champion, you have to beat the champion.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
He did not beat the champion the first time they fought. Want to talk about the Oscar De La Hoya fight? You want to talk about a guy that took a liver punch?
Took a liver punch.
Folded. And then he goes on to fight Joe Calzaghe, who
beat up a lot of people.
Who beat up Roy Jones?
Beat up a lot of people. There's no shame in losing to Joe.
There's no shame. But he lost a close fight, though. It was a close fight.
It was a split decision, which I gave to Calzaghe watching the fight, even as a Hopkins fan.
Yeah.
But he dropped him in the first round. A lot of people forget that.
No, I watched the
He
fight.
actually had control of the fight early on, but Kozagi came back, and that dude has that kind of thing where he just throws so many punches. He's such a busy fighter. He got himself back into the fight.
I remember the beatdown he put on Antonio Tarver. That was right after Antonio Tarver took the role in the Rocky film.
Yeah.
And Bernard Hopkins really wanted to make it sounds funny, but Rocky is a Philadelphia folktale. Like that's Philly, right? And Antonio Tarver had just had that role in the Rocky film, and Bernard Hopkins made it very known in his press conferences that he wanted to make him pay for having that role in the Rocky film. And he did.
Hey, Coach, don't forget, before the fight, Tarver and Bernard Hopkins, they bet $250,000 on who gonna win the fight. Bernard Hopkins bet that much money on him and won that fight. He also bet $100,000 on himself. Trinidad fight. Told Trinidad he was gonna take his money.
He beat him every round, though. He beat Tarver every round in that fight. It was a shutout. That fight was a shutout.
The Trinidad fight, which was really funny, is he didn't even bet $100,000 of his own money. What he did, what?
Wasn't it the casino's money?
The casino basically had him temporary tattoo something on his back, and he fought with it the entire fight. Yeah. And they paid him $100,000, and he took that $100,000 and bet on himself as an 8-1 dog in the Trinidad fight, and made himself $800,000. Like, I love Bernard Hopkins.
I have a lot of favorite boxers.
Yep.
He was. It's a weird thing to say, but he became my favorite boxer the night he lost to Roy Jones Jr. I know that's weird. Yeah, he became my favorite boxer that night because I saw something in him, and he was one of those guys that he could really change up his styles to whoever he fought. It didn't really matter. Had enough speed to work you on the outside, but could break you down to the body if you were one of those quicker, flashier fighters and take your legs away. He could do everything. And what's impressive is he didn't just fight for a long time. Like, he was still fighting at a high level into his late 40s. That's extended greatness. I hate when people say he just had a long career. It wasn't just he just fought for a long. Roy Jones is still currently fighting. He's still getting beat up. Bernard Hopkins was winning titles.
Bernard Hopkins was one of the most calculated fighters. He was a dirt ball. He was dirty. He would find ways to headbutt you. I loved it. He was he modern day. He was a fighter, right? He was a dirty fighter, but I loved it the way he fought. Old school, yo. He
intimidated Winky Wright before their fight, Coach. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
He mushed Winky Wright in the face. He mushed him.
Hey, speaking of Jermaine Taylor that you brought up, that may be an overrated boxer right there. Because it just seemed like for Jermaine Taylor, everybody that he fought was a close fight. It took him some times. It took him a time to fight. It took him a lot. He got crucified because he fought. You remember he fought Corey Spinks, and that was a close fight. And Corey Spinks ran a lot in that fight. Corey Spinks and people that got so bad, people wasn't even watching it. They didn't even enjoy the fight. But it took him some time to fight Kelly Pavlik. People had questions about that. And he got beat down on that one, but
he didn't get beat down in that fight. You watched that first Kelly Pavlik fight?
That was a war. It was a war.
That was a war.
Like through the first round, they were throwing blows, and I think he got tired. He got fatigued. Yeah. Kelly Pavlik just wore him down, but they were throwing hard blows. They were throwing hard blows from the first round. They were hitting each other. Kelly Pavlik just kept walking them down, hitting them to the body and stuff, and he's starting to get a little fatigued. But that Winky Wright fight, I thought Winky Wright got robbed in that fight. I thought
100% he did.
He got totally robbed in that fight against.
You're 100%. I mean, it was a draw, but Winky Wright won the fight.
Yes.
I agree with you. And he basically had 3 fights in a row where the majority of the media thought he lost the fight. The 2 Hopkins fights and then the Winky Wright fight. I mean, he beat Kasim Uma and then Corey Spinks, but then that Kelly Pavlik fight. I remember watching that fight, and I remember watching the first 2 rounds. I'm like, these guys are fighting like it's round 12, and the fight's on the line in round 1, and they have all their energy. And I've never seen a group of if you could live bet back then, I would have put every dollar I had on the under 8.5 in that fight. There was no way that fight was going 9 rounds. None. Because the way they started that fight, it was just like 100% on both sides. We're going 100%.
That was a war. That was a war.
Yep.
It was incredible.
You don't see fights like that anymore.
No, you don't. You're right.
Then he goes on. He loses to Carl Froch after he was up in the 12th round. All he had to do was stay on his feet. He got knocked out in that fight. But like I say, man, it was a great breakdown, Mo, of Bernard Hopkins. Can't wait to see who you have next. Well, shout out to everybody that came in the chat, man. It's the conclusion of the morning show. Shout out to Gene for coming on for the last and final segment for us. We got some more activities for y'all on the Empire Sports Network later. But Gene, tell the people they can follow you at.
I don't know at this point, man. I feel like I want to answer like Coach. I'm everywhere at this point. I'm
doing
shows almost every day. I'm working as hard as I possibly can and growing as much reach as possible. So I just appreciate being able to hop on and talk sports. I love it. If you can't tell by my passion, I feel like I'm gonna have a stroke or a heart attack soon. The way I'd be screaming on these shows. But thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. And I want to give a huge shout out to somebody. Shout out to Gene for maintaining his title last night. But Sabino put on. Hey,
Bino.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Bino, man, from killing it last night, man, making it to the final.
That was a great performance. Yeah. I mean, for him to come back after the first time and having nerves, and he admitted it. Bino showed out. I thought he accounted himself very, very well. Shout out to Bino.
Yeah, great job by Bino. Great job by Bino last night. He really brought his game. So Mo, tell the people they can follow you at.
Before I tell the people, am I the only one to notice that last question? I think what was the question? We're talking about the Cowboys. Big Time was frustrated. Big Time wanted to mute all of it.
The question was if you could switch and be GM for the Eagles or the Cowboys for the next 5 years, which one would you pick? And I do want to talk a little shit real quick, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Y'all brought the show up last night.
Yeah.
I'm worried, right? I'm worried. And I'm not worried that any of those three are ever going to beat me in a debate. I'm worried that I'm going to get bored. So I want to talk a little shit, and I hope that Trey, Ryan, Bino, or anybody else that wants to step in their place, I'll throw an open challenge out there. If anybody wants to sit and debate with me sports topics, I need to keep myself fresh, and I feel like I'm playing against little leaguers. So I'm talking a little smack. I am. But if we're being completely honest, these are blowouts. These are blowouts. Maurice, I seen your comment last night when you said Bino coming for Gene. No, he's not. No, he's not.
But that was sarcasm.
I know. Mo, I know. I'm
trying to pump Bino up, right?
Yeah, man. We trying to pump him up, man.
You're the last person that needs to be pumped up. Bino needs to be pumped up.
Yeah. I didn't mean like that. That you're not like. I just want. I feel like I'm very, very confident in what I'm doing on that show, and I want to talk a little smack so they can come harder and harder and harder. I love it. It's fully intentional what I'm doing right now. It's not meant to be. I love what Bino did last night. I love what Trey and Ryan do on the guys huddle. I just want them to come as hard as humanly possible because iron sharpens iron, and right now my iron's getting dull.
Yeah, man. All right. Go ahead, Mo.
Like that. Yeah. Look, you can find me here in the Empire with the family, Monday through Friday with you, Coach, and Coffee Sports in the morning. And I've been blessed. I'm on the cheap seats with Gene and the crew, 6:30 on Mondays. So check us out, cheap seats.
Yep. No introduction for me. Y'all know y'all can find me at. That's everywhere. Almost every Empire Sports Network show you see me on. I was a part of the Factor Cap yesterday. It was a fun show. Freddie said the most blasphemous words that we would ever. Oh my God, that we would ever.
Watered down air. So I don't know. Somebody's got to make you got to make a clip out of that. You have to make.
I got the clip. Matter of fact, I'm gonna post a clip today because I've been posting our clips on IG and stuff later. I got the clip. I'm gonna get the clip and just actually post it and stuff like that with what he said. But He'll take Aaron Rodgers right now. You know he'll take it 30
Not the
minutes.
best clip maker in the business right in the chat right now.
Yep.
ECG's in the chat, bro.
ECG's
I'll tell you right
amazing.
now, if there ever needs to be a disc clip made, it needs to be made at Freddie after last night. All you got to do is listen to the end of Factor Cap.
Yep.
Last night, me and Freddie were on the show, if ECG's still listening. He said that Patrick Mahomes was a watered-down version of Aaron Rodgers.
Man.
If you just want to put that up there, I'm telling you right now, that shit would go viral.
Hey, yeah, it would go viral because he make them funny. He make them funny. He said,
Do your thing, ECG. Do your thing.
Hey, if you could do it, I appreciate that, man. Hey, I appreciate it if you could do that. That would be funny, man. That would really be funny. That was crazy. That was crazy right there. Yeah. So shout out to everybody, man, that was a part of the morning show. As for Coach Dante, your boy Gene, your boy Mo, we will definitely see y'all later on today and on Monday morning. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of the day.